falling down, collapsing, standing up, stiffening. It's the great dilemma for musicians and music teachers in figuring out postural support, coordination for playing and for teaching. Okay, so let's look at a couple of the principles. The first thing is that there's a pile of muscle activity always going on in the body which prevents you from falling on the floor. If you decide to reduce that muscle activity, everything will tend to fall downwards. You get kind of heavy, you get kind of disorganized. That's over-relaxation or relaxation. What's very typical, you have an instruction from your music teacher, or maybe you are a music teacher, and you're looking to help people to support themselves well, to support their instrument well, in order to produce their potential with the least amount of strain, the most amount of facility. Unfortunately, that tends to lead to trying to hold yourself up. Trying to hold yourself up will result in pulling up off the surface, so in this instance off the chair, in a way which is tightening the musculature in my back, making me stiffer, holding my breath, and ultimately organizing the action slightly backwards because the muscular activity is pulling up to go back rather than being organized forwards in relation to the instrument that you're playing or the keyboard. So let's take a look at an alternative way of thinking about this. Gravity is constantly working to pull the parts of the body towards the ground, and we need the movability of the availability of all of the system moving, head and spine and pelvis, legs, hands and arms, in order to be able to adjust and coordinate and balance effectively. So the first thing is that anything that leads to stiffness tends to reduce effectiveness and comfort and makes it harder to have that wonderful poised postural support for playing that we're after. So the second thing is that given that gravity is constantly pulling down and the musculature is constantly responding, we just remind you to think about the thing that you want. And the thing that you want, let's frame as support. If I hold an object like this, music case, for example, maybe we'll look at one of those in a moment, the object is falling towards the ground and there's constant muscle activity which is keeping it up. If my mind is oriented to the sensation of the weight of the object, I feel how heavy it is, or I'm thinking about how I have to hold it up, then the orientation of my mind is towards the ground. Try that out as you're lifting an instrument or supporting something. See what happens if you think about the weight. Then, given that you are moving, so you're going to move a little bit, and as you move a little bit, think about support. I want this object to be supported in a direction which is away from the ground. I can keep it stable, but the orientation of the idea of support is orienting upwards. So I'm moving the object, and then I think about support. What's the difference thinking about supporting an object rather than thinking about the weight of an object? That difference is a consequence of the way that your neuromusculature responds to your spatial thought, where you are in space. But without getting too technical about it, it's a way to begin the process of helping your students or helping yourself to improve your postural support. The second thing to talk about in relation to this is that just basically in terms of balance, if you lean somewhere, if I lean somewhere forwards or lean backwards or lean sideways, any kind of leaning will increase the muscle load that's required to keep you well balanced and moving, because as soon as you start leaning, obviously body's falling more in that direction, muscles respond, movement responds in order to prevent you from falling. So leaning is a big deal. When you lift up an object in front of you, say you're picking up a musical instrument in front of you, there's a great tendency to lean backwards. And that leaning backwards changes the balance on the feet and changes the organization of the musculature in a way which is preventing you from falling, and in that process stiffening the torso and affecting your ability to breathe, affecting your breathing. We are basically organized to do things easily in front of us, and that includes the balance of the head and the body over the hip joints, or if you're sitting, over your sitting bones. The support that comes from underneath is organized in a way so that we can do things in front of us easily. So thinking about that, the organization of head and whole body and instrument is made to do something in front. We're thinking about support, the idea of responding to gravity by supporting things, and we're thinking about movement. So those three things, the movability of the whole system that continues to be movable as you play, the conception of support, which is organized away from the ground, and the idea of being organized to do things in front, so up and around in front. Have an experiment and see how you go. Okay.